Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It's Monday, September 22nd, a little after 8:30 at night, and this is our daily recap video for our YieldMax weekly paying funds. The first is ULTY, the Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund. The next is SLTY, the Ultra Short Option Income Strategy Fund. And because I'm getting such a late start, we're going to add LFGY to this video as well. That's YieldMax's crypto industry option income ETF. A reminder, I'm on X at ETF_Inspector1. I post everything related to these ETFs and the videos coming out for them if you want the heads up when they are going to be premiering. I do know if you subscribe and you click on the notifications, you get that as well, but I think sometimes they are slightly delayed, whereas as soon as I schedule them, I go ahead and post on X what time they're scheduled for. All right, it was an odd day for our funds, as obviously. If you looked at the thumbnail, you saw a lot of changes in ULTY, so I've got tons of homework to do now, changing formulas and changing spreadsheets and everything like that. But ULTY ended up flat on the day, so it gets green because unchanged is green. So we had obviously some big moves in different directions, but the mix-up resulted in the share price staying about flat. I didn't happen to look to see. Looks like they went up a penny after hours. Next we go to SLTY, which was down pretty bad, over 1%. Kind of came back a little in the after hours, but nothing too much. And then LFGY, down most of the day, but kind of broke above and into the positive right at the end, or late anyway, and only went back down 2 cents after hours. So we will go into the particulars of the individuals on our spreadsheets. After 5:30, we are able to go and download all the trades, and ULTY just decided to kick my butt today. 117, line 117 all the way through 223, so 106 trades. SLTY wasn't too bad, 10 trades, and LFGY was even nicer, 0 trades. So that's why, another reason why I'm combining the videos. I don't need a whole video just to tell you LFGY didn't make any trades. But we'll start with everybody's favorite, ULTY. And like we said, we definitely put some money to work buying some new stocks within the fund. Figma Inc. is the first, then Pony AI, we bought some of that. SoundHound AI, we actually sold out of Oklo, taking major profits on those. Bought back into Bitmine Immersion, sold our shares of IonQ, again taking major profits on that. Took some profits on New Scale Power, but didn't sell completely out of them. Added Quantum Computing, sold some shares of Rigetti, but not all of them. Let me just double check. New Scale definitely had more than 1 million, and Rigetti had more than 2.8 million. Yes, 5 million there and 7 million there. Yep, so just trimming our position on those. Symbotic, which is in SLTY, is now also in ULTY, so that's an odd one. We bought some more Upstart, we bought some more Bullish, and we sold our shares of Credo Technology. From there, we got into our option trading. So since we bought more shares of Bullish, we're going to start the collar position on them as well. That brought in 685,000. Since we bought shares of Bitmine Immersion, we're going to start our collar. Collar simply being selling calls out of the money to generate income, buying puts out of the money just as a protection as far as for our shares in the event they go down. Purchased puts will increase in value to offset that. So we brought in $780,000 with Bitmine Immersion. Coinbase, we adjusted our strike price closer to the money, and that brought in $600,000. Credo Technology was down, so when we sold all our shares and closed out our options, it was cheaper to buy to close the calls, and our purchased puts had increased in value to the point that we got a credit of $2.4 million. So that helped offset the downward movement in the stock share price of Credo. CoreWeave, we were closing and adjusting a portion of our options, not a full swap. That's why it's not in orange. But that cost us $5.5 million, still within the same week. Figma, what was it? Figma Inc. I've never heard of them before, but starting the collar strategy on those new shares brought in $665,000. IonQ, I think it's sitting at all-time highs. So selling those shares and closing out the options, it's going to cost a decent amount of money to close those out, $13 million. MicroStrategy or strategy, just adjusting our sold calls closer to the money, brought in $517,000. Oklo again ran way high, so we got lots of money selling our shares, but we are going to have to pay to close out those sold calls. That cost $12.2 million. Open Door, we just adjusted our sold calls down by 50 cents from 10.50 down to 10. Still within the same week, collecting another $595,000. Palantir, all we did was adjust our puts. So since the price is moving up, we sold our 160s and 165s and bought 170s. That cost us $772,000. Pony AI, we bought shares of them, so we had to start our collar option strategy. That brought in $310,000. Same thing with this QUBT, Quantum Computing. Yep. New collar strategy on that brought in $460,000. Rigetti, we adjusting our options, still staying within the same week, but having to roll up. That's cost us $9.1 million. Rocket Companies, adjusting our strike price down by $1.50. That brought in $225,000. New Scale Power, so buying to close and selling to close puts for the million shares that we sold, and then also adjusting the options for others, which is very odd. We bought to close 10,000 contracts at 47, and then we sold to open 10,000 contracts at 47. We did make an 8 cents difference on that, but that's really odd. All in all, it cost us $4.5 million on the option trading. Soundhound? We added them to the fund today. So with the 4 million new shares, we're going to have 40,000 new contracts of our collar strategy, bringing in $750,000. Symbotic, added them to the fund. Collar strategy brought in $371,000. And finally, Upstart, we closing and adjusting our 72s and 75s down to 68s. Had a overall credit of $1.8 million. So all in all, options trading today cost us $35 million. We also had a decrease in our share values on the underlyings of almost $23 million, $22.9 million. So now you're going to be asking, well, if we lost money trading and our share values dropped, how come our share price stayed flat? We did talk about this before. This is not, that $22.9 million drop is not the overall value change. That is just the change in market value of the actual underlying shares. So on a day that's going to trade sideways or even down a little, what it's going to do is lower the cost to close out all these short calls, and every time our negatives shrink, they're going to overall help our value. So it's most likely that they basically shrunk in an amount that offset the drop in the share values, right? We just don't have live time updates on every single option price the way we do for our underlyings. So starting off to look how each underlying performed. Affirm was down 2.2%. Still have options 3 and 4% out of the money. Bullish was down over 8.8%. That actually brought their options out of the money. They were in the money, so now they're now 6 and 7% out of the money. Coinbase was down over 3%. They did roll their 365s. They still have 360s that are about 8.5% out of the money. Credo Technology, we closed them out, closed out all the options, sold all the shares. So let's see, they closed at 164. How do we do as far as timing selling them? We sold for 160 and 163. So if we'd have waited till the end of the day, it would have been better, but hindsight's 2020. CoreWeave was the big winner today, up 6.7%. That did take their 125s into the money by 6%, but no option. Actually, I don't want to say no. They only did a portion of them, 6,000 out of the 12,868 contracts. Still got $525 million in government obligation funds and $95 million. We went over that on the Sunday video. Those won't get updated until the holdings download that comes out after this video. First Solar was up 3+%, still just barely out of the money on their options, 0.3%. Galaxy Digital, we've got just a put spread, no shares owned, and those $31 puts sold are almost 8% out of the money. Hims and Hers was down a little bit, 0.2%. They've got options 4% in the money, 0.5%, and 5.7% out of the money. Robinhood Markets was up just barely 0.09% or 11 cents. They are 1.6 and 3.2% out of the money. IonQ, this one's been my favorite for a long time, up over 2%. We closed everything out, sold the shares, and closed the options. 71.94 is where they ended. What did we get for them? 72.46 and 71.48. So we did well, kind of averaged right around where it closed. Lululemon closed at 173.41. Their put spread is still out of the money by just about 2%. Strategy was down 2.5%. They closed their 365s and rolled them closer. They still have 367% out of the money. Oklo, all the shares were sold and all the options were closed. 140.30 is what they closed at. We got 136 for our shares, so we could have got another $4 a share times $1.2 million or 1.2 million shares. So we could have got almost $5 million more dollars. Open Door was the big loser. I was afraid of this, right? They ran from $2 up to almost $10, $9 and change, and then we jumped into them. So then they dropped almost 12.5% today. We did adjust these sold calls down closer to the money. Palo Alto Networks, we've got a put spread, no shares. That put spread is still 0.3% out of the money. Palantir was down 1.6%. Puts were adjusted, but the calls are still in play, 0.3 and 1.7% out of the money. Reddit was down 2.6%, still 4.8% out of the money on their calls. Rigetti was down 0.5%. They went ahead and rolled their deepest in the money and their furthest out of the money calls. They still have 28s that are 1.3% in the money. Rocket Lab was down or up 4.2%. Took their 49.50s into the money just a little bit, 0.6%, 31 cents basically, and they've got 50s that are 0.3% out of the money. Rocket Companies was down 3.3%. They rolled their further out of the money position and still have calls that are 8.5% out of the money. New Scale Power was down 3.78%. What'd they do? They rolled a portion of their deepest in the money calls, still have some left at 6% in the money. They still have some at 2.2% out of the money, and then the 47s were rolled and the associated puts to go along with all those calls. Tesla was, I'm going to say that was probably a drop today, but either way, 434 is where it ended. We don't own any shares, so we don't keep track of a change in market value on that. Sold puts at 425 or 2% out of the money. Unity Software down 1/3%, almost. Still 3.5% out of the money on those calls, and Upstart was down 4.4%. So they went ahead and rolled all their calls. This isn't a call, this is a sold put that is still 10+% out of the money. So all of those changes resulted in change in market value of the shares alone of $22.9 million. We had $3.4 billion in assets under management when the day started, 604 million outstanding shares, and the NAV was 568. So we were getting a penny discount. Dry powder, like we said, the two added up to about 600 million when you take the 620 and take away the collateral for the 4 put spreads. All right, so that's all things ULTY. We'll get into SLTY and get through these much quicker. They only had 4 sets of trades, no actual shares changing hands, just options. So Astera Lab brought in 53, or actually spent 53,000 to adjust those options, still for the same week. Duolingo, just adjusting their puts closer to the money, brought in 2,000. Nebius Group adjusting their puts further out of the money, cost them 3,000, and Symbotic closing and adjusting their sold puts closer to the money, brought in 4,600. So on the trading day, it cost them 39,000. They also dropped in value by 129,000. All right, when we take a look at their holdings, Astera Lab was down 3%, so that actually helps them, increases the value because they're shorted shares. They're in the negative. All positions, options-wise, were rolled. Bloom Energy up 1.5%. Still have puts 9% out of the money and calls 15, almost 16% out of the money. BitDeer Technology was the biggest increase, up over 9%. That hurts a lot, drops your value by 100,000. Puts are almost 11% out of the money, and calls sold are almost 17% out of the money. Circle Internet Group was the biggest decreaser, down 4.5%. They got to capture all of that because their sold puts are still 1.1% out of the money. It increased the value by almost 41,000. Duolingo was up over 6%. So they just rolled these puts to a closer strike. Enphase Energy up 5.4%. Puts are still 8.6% out of the money. GitLab was down 1.4%. 4850 puts are still almost 2% out of the money. Lemonade was down 2%. Puts are still 6% out of the money. Mara Holdings up 1/3%. Puts are almost 2% out of the money, and sold calls are 30+% out of the money. Nebius Group up 7.3. Isn't that higher than what we said? Nope, 9%. So those puts were closed and rolled to a closer strike. RH was down over 3%. Their puts are in the money by almost 4.5%. Symbotic was up 6.45%. They rolled their puts to a closer strike, and Tempest AI was down 2.6%. Puts are still 1% out of the money. So that updated after I started. So that resulted in an overall decrease of $131,000. All right, again, if you watch the Sunday video, these haven't changed yet because this is the first trading day, so we need the download to come out to update the holdings. But assets under management is $11.6 million. Outstanding shares 275. I keep forgetting that this is an auto update because Excel is not familiar with SLTY yet. So 42.20, they dropped 50 cents today. And now we'll move on to LFGY. LFGY was the easiest one yet. No transactions, no buying or selling of shares or options. So that's going to result in a 0 for our credits and debits. And then we dropped in value by 123,000, but as you saw, LFGY was actually up today. So again, this is one of those where maybe the shares dropped in price overall by 123,000, but the amount that everything dropping or trading sideways overall affected the costs to close out. That offset it, allowing LFGY to end up positive. So some of these we've already talked about as there's carryover in the other funds, but Bitmine Immersion was the big loser today, down over 10%. Their sold calls are 7% out of the money, so they were in the money before today started. BitDeer Technology was the big winner, up over 9%, and we got to capture all that because the sold calls are still 3% out of the money. CleanSpark up 0.88%. They're still 5.5% out of the money on their sold calls. Coinbase down 3%, still 8.5% out of the money on their calls. Core Scientific up 3.3%. Calls are still 1.9% out of the money. Circle Internet Group down 4.5%. Their calls are over 14% out of the money. iShares Ethereum Trust ETF down 6.7%. Almost 20% out of the money on those sold calls. Wouldn't be surprised if we see those get closed out tomorrow. Galaxy Digital up almost 2.5%, still 3.8% out of the money, so they were able to capture that. GameStop up 2.6%. They're getting close, 0.8% out of the money on their calls. Robinhood up just barely 0.09%. What do we say? That was 11 cents. They're still 2.5% out of the money on their short calls. HUD 8 Corp up 4.5%, still 16% out of the money, so they got plenty of room to go, but those have already been rolled to the following Friday. iBit was down 2.6%, no options, so it just hurt as far as share value. Mara was up 0.33%. They've just got these $20.50 calls that are 11.7% out of the money. MBTX don't own any shares, but today's drop brought their sold calls at 280, 5.5% out of the money, and brought their 255 purchased puts 3.8% out of the money. We want those to go in the money. Mercado Libre up 0.33%, still 3.6% out of the money on their sold calls. Strategy down 2.5%, still 7+% out of the money. NU Holdings up 0.8. They're 1.23% out of the money on their calls. Nvidia was up almost 4%, and they're more than 4% in the money on those. Opera up 1.6%. They've got calls sold at 20 and 21, but realistically the 20s are the only ones that matter because there's 4,100 contracts compared to 20 contracts. 4.6 and 9.8% out of the money. PayPal was down 0.79%. They are 4.9% out of the money on their calls. Riot Platform up 0.2%, still 8.5% out of the money. And Block up almost 0.5%, still 3.3% out of the money. So all in all, it resulted in a $123,000 decrease in value of the shares. This is actually from Friday's trading. They dropped 25,000 shares, so people selling out of the fund. There's still $193 million in assets under management, 5,275,000 outstanding shares, and the price at close just under 37, so it was an increase, but they started the day at a 36.75 NAV. All right, that's everything I've got for you for ULTY, SLTY, and LFGY. That was whole lots of data and numbers, so now you deserve a dad joke. So before I do, thank you for watching. Appreciate all the support, likes, shares, and comments. They definitely help. Just asking if you know anybody that is into any of these, that you share these videos or the channel with them so that they're able to get the information about their investment as well, because there's not a lot of investments out there outside of YieldMax where you get to know their every single day trades. So, all right, dad joke of the day. What do you call a typo on a headstone? That would be a grave mistake. All right. Thank you for watching. Have a good night and good luck trading tomorrow. Catch you in the next video.